Demi Moore talks about her upcoming role as a real-life mom tonight at 6:30.
Channel 2, KPRC-TV. This is The Scene at 5 with Ron Stone, Doug Johnson, and the Channel 2 News team.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ron Stone.
And I'm Doug Johnson, and this is The Scene at 5.
15 years ago, the first job we ever had as a team was on this program called The Scene at 5. We did it rather well, I think, for about 10 years, and then we were given other assignments. But this half hour of the day always remained our love. And since the announcement that The Scene at 5 has been coming back, more than one person has reminded us of that historic literary adage that says you can't go home again. But we choose to remember a greater truth, and that is that home is where the heart is.
And now we're all home on The Scene at 5.
Okay. Big day at the post office today. It cost you more to mail a letter, neighbors, so you can't send your Publishers Clearinghouse entry back without an extra 3 cents on it. Cost of a first-class stamp is now 25 cents. So you got this 22-cent stamp laying around, you got to buy 3. And they are selling them by the yard today. You'll be happy to know that the post office has plenty of 3-cent stamps. If you mail a letter with 22 cents on it, they say they won't take it. But if they do, the person you mail it to will know that you're cheap because they'll have to pay postage due. It's too late to mail in your traffic fines that you'd hoped everybody would forget about. The people who put off paying their traffic fines can expect a visit from the city marshals. Crackdown is underway. Folks with bad traffic ticket problems had 2 weeks to get everything right with City Hall or else. And now we are told that the marshals are out and they are mean and they're after all those people who scoff at traffic tickets. In Houston, there's been another murder involving an elderly woman. It happened on the north side of town. Phil Archer is covering the story for our 6 o'clock news. He'll tell you all about that. One of the men accused of killing that Galveston waitress, Shelley Sykes, has gone on trial over in Beaumont. Jan Carson and Bill Baessa will have that story on the 6 o'clock news. Well, the White House has told Jesse Jackson, thanks a lot, but no thanks. It can handle relations with Panama's drug king, General Noriega. Thank you. Jackson wrote Noriega a letter offering to mediate the problems between the United States and Panama. Apparently, somebody forgot to tell Mr. Jackson that that's against the law, negotiating for our government. Anyway, the general wrote back saying, yes, you can help me, just tell the White House to get off my back. Jackson then announced today that he has changed his mind and will not be the middleman. This is caucus night in Colorado, the state that gave us Hart and Schroeder and Vail. We'll decide something tonight, but the big prize is going to be in Wisconsin. Mr. Dukakis has a lead as they go into the last day of campaigning. Then there's Al Gore of Tennessee closing fast. And then there's Paul Simon, who is closing dead in the water. The big question is, what's Mr. Jackson going to do? If he should happen to win Wisconsin, a lot of old-time Democrats are going to start looking for a very tall building to jump off of. State of Texas has put together a pork barrel list of 274 historic structures in Texas that need fixing up, and we'd prefer to do it with somebody else's money. The Reagan administration cut out federal grants back in 1981 to put things back together, but a new statewide assessment's being ready just in case, and the big item on the list, $5 billion to repair the water-filled fuel tank of the battleship Texas. It's now docked down at the San Jacinto Monument. Time now for our report on capitalism. Question is, what did the stock market do today? Of course, only Louis Rukeyser knows why it did whatever it did, but this indeed is what it did. Turn it on, will you please? There it goes. Declining issues outnumbered advancers by more than 2 to 1. Dow Jones Industrials dropped nearly 7.5 points to 1980.60, and I assume you lost money today, right?
I like the way that swings back and forth. You know where it's going to end up each day? You don't know. You just have to wait for the end.
Plugged right into Wall Street.
Well, let's take a look now at the weather, what's going on around the nation. We'll look at the local and regional weather in just a few moments, but this is the way it looked on the satellite picture, looking at the entire Earth this afternoon.
There it was.
Cloud cover down around the equator, down in South America, but generally conditions are quite good in the United States. We had some low cloud cover with fog left over from the morning. Low temperatures tonight, we're expecting 60s in our area, so it's going to be nice and warm. Likewise for Florida, and then quite cold up to the north. Now look at the highs for tomorrow. 90s creeping in from out in West Texas and getting pretty close to us. Another area of 90s over in Georgia, then 50s way up to the north. The new cool front is going to be coming down in this direction, probably passing through either late tomorrow or the following day. This is the way tomorrow's map is going to be looking. Snow up in the extreme north, rain occasionally mixed with some snow up in the northwestern part of the country, increasing cloud cover for us, and a few widely scattered showers. And those temperatures you see on the map are the projected highs for tomorrow. So we're expecting some increasing cloud cover, increasing chance of rain, but we'll get into all that in just a few moments on our forecast for the Houston area.
Okay.
Now, every day we're going to, at about this time, review with you a little snippet of history, called appropriately enough, because you couldn't think of a better name for it, This Day in History.
Yeah, I like that.
Today, of course, is the 20th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King, Jr. Dr. King's life was an inspiration. He provided a path of freedom that many thought was beyond their reach, and his death was steeped in irony. The dynamic Baptist minister was brought down by the violence he had so vehemently preached against.
And, of course, we're going to spend a great deal of time today talking about Dr. King's life and about his death and looking back at that. And you'll come back and tell us about the weather.
Got all the weather.
Okay, coming up in just a moment, we're going to go live to Memphis to that hotel balcony where Dr. King was shot. And we'll talk to the man who is serving a 99-year prison sentence for killing him. Stay with us as the Scene at 5 continues.
Tell me where the man gone. He freed a lot of people, but it seems the good die young.
20 years ago this afternoon, Dr. Martin Luther King was shot to death and a grand life ended. He was killed in Memphis, Tennessee on the balcony of a motel called the Lorraine. Gail Anderson is there tonight with News Star 2, and let's call her in now. Gail?
Well, Ron, this has been some kind of day for these two members of the Channel 2 news team. My photographer, James Perry, and I, you can't see James, he's taking this picture at the moment. We've been outside of the Lorraine Motel all day long looking at the observances and tributes paid to Dr. King, and we couldn't help but wonder what it was like here 20 years ago. 20 years ago when the Lorraine was a very fashionable place to stay. Well, the local folks here have given us a taste of what the civil rights movement was like here 20 years ago and how the city has changed since Dr. King's death here.
We are not afraid. We are not afraid.
The lengthy memorial march started in downtown Memphis. The destination, the Lorraine Motel, outside the balcony of room 306, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot to death. The final rallying point of the day, the corner of Mulberry and Butler, overlooking the now dilapidated remains of the Lorraine. Memphis attorney Darmy Bailey spearheaded the nearly $9 million campaign to convert the Lorraine into a civil rights museum.
Renovating. We're not going to tear down this site. It's going to look exactly the same as you see it now, except the building will be restored.
But others, like Jacqueline Smith, argue the Lorraine should be renovated as a shelter for the homeless.
No, we feel that if a civil rights center is put at the Lorraine Motel, it will desecrate the memory of Dr. King. Dr. King's will and legacy will not be carried out with a high-tech tourist trap.
Smith was the last Lorraine tenant. She was evicted March 2nd to make room for the museum. Other opponents of the museum tried to shout down NAACP Director Ben Hooks. He's a museum supporter. The parades and marches and speeches here are all over for the day, but people are still coming here. All kinds of people, poor people in little economy cars, people apparently very wealthy, and I saw one person in a limousine pull up here. Some of these people are coming to just look, to talk to each other, to take pictures, and some people are just leaving flowers here and turning and walking away. It's hard to describe how it feels to stand there. I've never been here before. This was my first trip, and it feels peculiar.
Gail,
Very peculiar, Ron.
as I understand it, there's a marker of some sort up at the room where he died. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. I wish we could show it to you a little better, but there's a marble plaque up there, and it has the birth dates and the death date of Dr. King, and it pays tribute to him as a leader of the civil rights movement and founding president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and it talks about how the dream should live on and not die here on the balcony of apartment 306 where Dr. King stayed the night of April 4th and was assassinated.
Well, it is very much alive, as you know, and as everyone who knows about what Dr. King stood for knows. Thank you very much, Gail Anderson. James Earl Ray, of course, is the man who is serving 99 years in prison for firing that shot from just across the alleyway where Gail is standing. Ron Regan has talked with Ray, who is still behind bars at a prison in Tennessee.
James Earl Ray was last seen in public 10 years ago. A congressional committee was investigating the King assassination. Now, by phone, Ray agreed to answer my questions about his role in Dr. King's murder. And that night outside the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, minutes after police found the civil rights leader shot to death.
My recollections was that, you know, the police was probably after me after I heard on the radio about the shooting. And I just kept, you know, kept moving. I was trying to get away naturally. Even if I could clear myself in the King matter, I would still had to keep on, you know, moving on because I had 20-year sentence in Missouri. So that was my thoughts, more or less.
I'm not feeling anything.
Just the sight of Dr. King on television would reportedly send Ray into a rage, something Ray denies emphatically.
Now, there has been reports that I used to watch TV in the Missouri prison. I'd go into convulsions when I seen, you know, King on TV. That story's been promoted in the news media quite a bit, but there's just nothing to it.
Well, he is a character, but he doesn't have much character.
Houston's Percy Foreman was Ray's defense attorney. He insists Ray begged him to enter a guilty plea.
When a case is absolutely conclusive against a defendant, and he has a possibility of a death penalty, and I figured that he was not only a possibility, but a certainty. My first duty was to try to save his life. And who was all for the plea because he didn't think there was a penitentiary in the country that could hold him.
Ray did escape in 1977.
I just ran through the woods about 3 days, and they have these silent dogs here, tracking dogs. Just accidentally they got on my trail, and they kind of sneaked up on me. The mountains and everything up here, it takes 4 or 5 days to get out of them.
He was captured 55 hours later and now spends all his time pursuing a new trial. Ray says he was forced into pleading guilty, claiming Foreman provided ineffective legal counseling.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that you would have preferred to plead innocent at the time.
That I wanted to?
Yeah, that you wanted to. Am I right on that?
Well, yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
But Foreman says he had Ray sign a document explaining over and over again that Ray understood exactly what he was doing.
That was to protect me against exactly what I knew would happen with a duplicitous character like James Earl Ray. I had all the guards in the... He had constant guards. He had 2 guards all full time. I made all 4 of them sign this, and initially the pages, and in order to protect myself.
James Earl Ray is sticking by his story that he was railroaded, and to this day he denies killing Dr. King despite 0 proof to the contrary.
No, I wasn't involved in it. On the King charge, you know, there's been charges I was held up supermarkets and banks and all that to finance the, you know, the homicide, and I received money from some conservative St. Louis attorney. Well, I no longer answer any of those charges.
Finally, James Earl Ray on his past and his future.
Well, I told you I'm more interested in getting even than getting out. I'm not talking about, when I talk about getting even, I'm not talking about some type of violence against some person.
And Ron, shortly after that, James Earl Ray and I ended our conversation, and he says that by getting even, he doesn't mean any physical violence against anyone. He simply means getting what he calls his side of the story out.
Sure, this guy doesn't think he can get out of jail.
He's absolutely convinced of it. He thinks that, again, he's promoted a conspiracy theory that someone else other than him committed the murder, and that the records are under file and no one can see them, but he knows.
Percy is convinced, though, that James Earl Ray did.
Percy Foreman thinks James Earl Ray is the man.
Percy Foreman's quite a fellow. It's good to see him again. Thank you, Ron Regan.
When James Earl Ray ended the brilliant life of Martin Luther King, King had indeed been to the mountaintop, but his people had not. And now, 20 years later, they're still not there, but the climb is considerably easier. Since King, blacks are increasingly being elected to public office. The number of black mayors in the United States, for example, has jumped from 48 in the past 15 years to more than 300. Jesse Jackson, who may or may not have been as close to Dr. King as you'd like us to think, could make a real run for the presidency because more blacks are going to the polls now than ever. But the problem, as King often said, is not so much getting into the restaurant. It's having the money to buy something to eat once you get in there. In a survey this year, blacks were asked about jobs, and 20% said they could not find a job because none was available to them. 20% said they could not work because they had to take care of their dependents or their children. 21% said they couldn't work because of health problems. 20% needed education, training, or credentials that could lead to a particular job. But only 3% of the black men and women interviewed said they could not find a job because of pure old discrimination. Martin Luther King would be happy about that figure. He would be happy that more black children are coming daily into the mainstream of education. He would be sad that so few reach college for one reason or another. James Earl Ray's bullet 20 years ago, or whoever's bullet it was, cut short MLK's dream, but it set another in motion. And on this anniversary of his death, we indeed are not to the mountain. All of us are still climbing. But more often than not, we are at least climbing together. Next, a look at one of the things that helps to make Texas, and specifically the Brenham area, so great. And we're not just talking about Little Creamery either, neighbors. One of the great joys of spring in Texas is the appearance of the state's official flower, the bluebonnet. And Catherine Smith is outstanding in a field right now.
Ron, tonight we are a little east of Brenham. You take Highway 290, head up toward Brenham, and just when you cross the Brazos River, you will start to see them. Hundreds of bluebonnets. It is a day trip that has truly become an annual rite of spring.
Beautiful, beautiful Texas, where the beautiful bluebonnets grow.
They grow by the thousands along Texas highways, a sea of blue that beckons you to pull over, wade on in, and sit a while.
It's such an unusual color, you don't think of a flower being blue. It's just like you're seeing water, just streams of water on the side of the road. It's just gorgeous.
So gorgeous, the McLaren family plans to export the Texas state flower to Tennessee.
We have given Texas our daughter, so we're going to take the flowers back.
See them? Come here, look at them.
Plopping your child in a patch of bluebonnets for a picture-taking session is almost a Texas tradition. But watch out for that other tradition, the one that bites.
Ants. I didn't know that. We have a blanket, but I was thinking of snakes, not ants.
But even the ants can't spoil the beauty of a field of Texas bluebonnets.
I just love them. I just want to pick them.
I am just floored that they're wild, but not all states have these wildflowers, and that's what makes it most unusual. Texas does a lot of unusual things.
But you're still in beautiful Texas, the most beautiful state that I know.
We owe a large part of this beautiful treat to Lady Bird Johnson, who played such a large role in promoting the Texas wildflowers. She encouraged the Texas Highway Department to plant them along the roads, and they did. They liked the idea. It meant they didn't have to mow so much grass. And, Ron, that's why we now have all these beautiful bluebonnets to drink in every spring.
Catherine, I must ask you a question. Doug Johnson says, I just thought I saw somebody picking one of those bluebonnets, and that's against the law. Is that against the law?
Well, you can tell Doug that that used to be against the law. Since this is the state flower, it was against the law, but they changed that law. You can pick them, but wildlife experts say, please don't pick the bluebonnets because otherwise they won't be here to drop their seeds and bloom next year.
Okay, Catherine, thank you very much. Catherine Smith and the lovely bluebonnets. Well, this is a great night for the Midwest. Kansas and Oklahoma will play for the national championship in basketball. I am not one to brag or bet. But if Oklahoma wins, a certain young lady from Kansas who works in the newsroom will owe me more than she can ever pay. If Oklahoma loses, she gets Doug's boat and 3 of his cars. Baseball season starts in the Dome tomorrow. Craig Roberts reports on this rite of spring.
Okay, it's almost batter-up time. The new-look Dome saw the Astros for the first time today. Some pitchers complained the mound wasn't high enough. The mound said the pitcher should relax. Pitcher Joaquin Andujar liked everything.
The Astros look beautiful, you know, I love it. Beautiful, beautiful clubhouse, you know, beautiful dugout, beautiful infield, you know, everything is beautiful.
The dugouts aren't really dugouts anymore, they're walk-ins now. Late arrival Steve Henderson was glad to be a walk-on, and his number 62 indicated he was a long shot. He'll be number 18 tomorrow. So 62, I thought maybe you were an offensive guard.
Well, I keep getting a little bit bigger. I might be there.
The people who schedule Major League Baseball have really smiled on the Astros. This is the 7th straight year they've been able to open at home. The Padres will help open it up. Mike Scott will start against San Diego's Ed Whitson.
You go to spring training looking forward to getting there, and by the time you leave, you want to get out there and get started. And it's a lot of fun. I'm sure I'll be a little nervous, but I'm looking forward to it.
And trivia experts take note. The first guy to spit on the new Astrodome turf, reliever Juan Augusto of the Astros.
Oh, I don't know if I was the first. Who'd say that?
Craig Roberts, Channel 2 Sports. We will pay proper homage to baseball tomorrow, and particularly to baseball cards that all of us should have kept but threw away. They are worth more money than you ever want to imagine. Well, it rained a little bit this morning, and then the sun tried to break through today. All in all, it was a typical Doug Johnson kind of day. He's going to explain all that to us in just a moment as the Scene at 5 continues. Been a good show. If we didn't have to do this tomorrow, it'd be a good week, wouldn't it?
Stop while you're ahead,
Yeah,
is that it?
I guess.
Well, the weather was pretty nice. Had a lot of fog this morning. Well, and there was a lot of cloud cover, but generally it's been not that bad a day.
It wasn't a very nice day at all.
Well, all right, then let's make it worse for tomorrow.
Oh.
We do have a front that's on the way down. Another little push of cool air. We're not going to get very many of those remaining for the rest part of the season. We're expecting the front to come through either late tomorrow night or the following morning. Now, our low this morning in Houston officially at Intercontinental Airport was 59, got up to 80 this afternoon. We did make it, even with all that cloud cover, but the sun was shining through some. 55 is the normal low, 76 the normal high. The record low for this day, 34 degrees, set in 1987, and the record high, 87 degrees, set in 1940. Our conditions around the area right now, 81 degrees over at Hull Airport on the west side, 79 up at Intercontinental Airport, 76 for downtown Houston, 76 also for Hobby Airport, 70 for downtown Galveston. Satellite picture. There's some low cloud cover still with us and some fog remaining along portions of the Texas coastline just offshore the upper Texas coast. Also some cloudiness way up to the north of us. And as we enhance the photograph, there's some areas of rain up in sections of Colorado. But the biggest area with the heaviest of the thunderstorms occurring off the coast of Louisiana. Some of that can be seen with our Gulf Scan radar installation in New Orleans. We're picking up heavy thunderstorms to the south and south-southwest of New Orleans. Movement appears to be to the northeast. Not too much rain around New Orleans itself. Just about all of it has remained offshore, and it's likely to do so. Our frontal system, by the way, is non-existent as far as this map is concerned. Our forecast, though, is calling for increasing cloud cover, if you can get very much more of it than what we had this morning. 20% chance of rain, let's call it, for tomorrow. Now, that 20% is going to be in the early part of the afternoon. By the time we get to tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, it's likely to be up around 40%. Wind's going to continue out of the south, low 68, high temperature of 84. Wednesday, cloudy skies, 40% chance of rain, at least during the first couple of thirds of the day. The wind will turn to the north, a low temperature of 62 and a high temperature of 78. And on Thursday, it looks like magnificently beautiful, mostly clear skies, no chance of rain, wind out of the north, low temperature of 56 and a high of 76.
That's good. That's when the Houston Festival is going to start. We need
that's right. I hadn't even thought about that. And the weekend coming up, while it's awfully early, it looks pretty good. I reserve the right to make a few minor adjustments for Sunday. It was a good
really
weekend, nice weekend.
One of the things that we used to do on the old Scene at 5 and what we intend to do on the new improved Scene at 5, if there's anybody out there, those of you who have birthdays for, I don't like to say elderly people because my mother gets really angry when she's only 80. Yeah, no, but you know, if you're like 85, 90, 95, 125, something like
100,
that.
there's no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
It's over 100.
We'd like to salute you on your birthday. So if you'll just send us a letter, or if you're shy, you can have one of your small children send it to us here at the Scene at 5, and you know the address by now, and we'll put that on the air and wish you a happy birthday. We could do that, couldn't we?
You threw a real scare into me a while ago, by the way.
What was that?
And it made me want to write a letter right away. When you were mentioning the little creamery, Craig Roberts told me that he and his family went up to see the ice cream being made, and they had closed production. And my first thought was that permanently?
No, it was
so
just...
I was going to make a big, I think we ought to cover that.
No, it's just that particular Friday that Craig went up there, but if the Bluebell people want to pay homage to us, they can send us some ice cream.
And we'll see to it he gets a lot.
See you tomorrow, the Scene at 5, neighbors.
Judge Joseph P. Wapner, no nonsense, knows the law, gets his point across, upholds justice. Judge Robert Franklin, caring, no pushover, Sharp legal mind. Specializes in solving family disputes. Wappner, Franklin. Giving you 1 full hour of the best in courtroom drama. Weekdays starting at 4 on Channel 2.
Channel 2 News is working for you right now on the next Nearly Noon.
I'm Terry Anzer. Gail Anderson and I will introduce you to Mr. Food as he steps out of his kitchen and into ours with helpful hints on preparing Texas fruits and vegetables.
Tune in to Houston on the next Nearly Noon, weekdays at 11:30 on Channel 2.
The horrible crime of snatching and abusing children. A convicted child abductor tells his story on the next Geraldo.
Geraldo, weekdays at 3 on Channel 2. A little understanding can make a world of difference.
Jesse Jackson and General Noriega, confusion and controversy.